Lost Cities Rivals. This is a new game in the Lost Cities family. This is a range of games that has been very successful. It's very simple, very linear, by Rainer Knizia, so you can expect, well, a Knizian game, and this is definitely like the original Lost City, a game in that with that family resemblance. It's simple, it's fairly abstract, very clean, very elegant design. Like in other Lost Cities games, you will collect the cards to form sets representing expeditions, but they could represent anything really. And you want numbers to go up, never down. What does that mean? If you have never played a Lost Cities game, well, you'll find out soon. You have coins, a very important element in the game. You have a main deck of cards. Each card has a suit at the bottom that represent a location where your expedition may go. Maybe it's the underwater city, the temple, the frozen city, and so on and so forth. So at the bottom of each card, you have a suit that represents the expedition. On top, you have a numerical value. We'll see what that is for. And very important, you have footprints. Footprints are worth victory points at the end of the game, so you really want to have as many as possible in your tableau. In a nutshell, players will acquire cards from the center of the table. They will place them in their personal area, and then will use their tableau that they form during the game to score points at the end of the game. Players receive two of these wager cards at the beginning of the game. They have the symbol, but don't have the symbol of the expedition, but don't have any numerical value. In fact, you can think of them as zeros. They will act as multipliers for your expedition if you have them in your expeditions. Then you take the main deck, you shuffle it, and you divide it approximately in 4 smaller decks. Well, you divide it in 4 decks of approximately the same size. Now, this is not really to sequence the cards because you don't see the decks in any way. They simply are the same deck split in 4. But it is useful for timing purposes because when a deck is exhausted, before you use the next deck, players will get some money. In fact, at the beginning of the game, players will split all of the money equally, then they will spend it during the game. It will go in the bank, call it whatever you like. And when a deck is exhausted and you start a new one, that is when the players divide equally the money that is in there. So that's when you get some of your money back. Now, what happens with these cards? During your turn, you must do one of 2 things. One thing is you draw a card and you put it face up. Ta-da! Yeah, that's it. That's very, very simple. And then my friend goes and takes her turn, and then I go and take a turn, and so on and so forth. So there will be a bunch of cards after a while. Instead of drawing new cards, what you can do is you declare an auction. To declare an auction, you need to be able to spend at least a coin, but you can start an auction with more, and you say, okay, I'm starting an auction with 3. And you may have heard how these auction thingies work. Somebody may bid more, and you go around, the players trying to bid each other, continue like this until only one player is left in the auction and everybody else is too scared, and that player spends all the money that they had committed to the auction. And what they can do, what right do they buy by winning the auction? They can take any and all of the cards that are in the central area, and or they can choose to discard a card from the central area and simply remove it from the game. You put it in the box and you're done. I said and or because in fact you may win an auction just to remove a card. Or you may remove a card and then take some cards, or take some cards and don't remove any. When you take cards, you put them in your personal area and you divide them in sets based on the expedition. So all of the sunken city need to be together, all of the temples need to be together, and so on and so forth. These ones can only be at the beginning, and then like in other games of of Lost Cities, the idea is you can add to an expedition only if the new card that you're adding has the same value or higher than the previous one. And so I'm just forming some expeditions here to give you a sense. If this is my situation right now, for example, I kind of locked myself out of that one pretty soon, because now I can add to this expedition here only an 8 or a 9 or a 10. Here still a lot of options, not so much, some options here, some options there. It's also good, as we said, to, if possible, to have multiple of these zero value cards there, because they will act as multipliers. As we said, you continue like this until a deck is depleted, in which case players get to divide the pot there in equal parts. Again, it's important to discard cards. Sometimes you win an auction just to do that. But you continue like this until all 4 decks have been exhausted. At that point, hooray, you score points. How many points do you score? The value of the footprints. Each footprint is a point, as simple as that. So this expedition here is 3 points. And I'm looking for more cards here to make it a little more interesting. This would be 2 points also, but there are multipliers. If you have 1 such card at the beginning of your expedition, you double the points on the footprints. If you have 2, you triple it. If you have 3, you quadruple it, and so on and so forth. So here we triple the value, so instead of 2, that is 6 points. You shouldn't put cards in between like this, but we're gonna cheat a little bit. If you have an expedition that has at least 4 number cards, so not these multipliers, but 4 number cards, you score it as usual, but then you also get to score 8 extra points for that expedition. And those extra points are not multiplied, they're just in addition to whatever the expedition scores you. So you score each expedition like that, sometimes multiplying, sometimes not, sometimes getting the 8 extra points. Important, at the end of the game, each coin that you still have is worth a victory point, and at that point the player with the highest total of victory points is the winner of the game. So Lost City Rivals is basically a version of Lost Cities that revolves around an auction mechanic. And there are pluses, and there is at least one small minus, at least for me. The box says that the game plays with 2 to 4 players, but I have a hard time thinking of auction games that really work well with 2 players. To me, it takes 3 to tango in an auction game. I want that extra level of uncertainty. I want that risk that or the tension that when I place a bid, by the time it goes back to me to bid again, it will be considerably higher. The fact that I increased by 1, you increased by 1, it's back to me and I increased by 1, somehow make it feel a little more repetitive, and I don't know, it just increases, the tension increases a little too slowly. Also, I feel with 2 players, I have a little too much control and knowledge over what you still have and what you can do and what is interesting to you. With 3 or 4 players, to me, auction games just work better, again, because now I'm bidding 1. Oh, I need to bid 5 now if I want to be still in the run. Again, on top of that, I don't know exactly what everybody has. So Lost Cities Rivals had that element, which again is far from unique in my experience and for my taste. Maybe you love to play your auction games. Good for you, then hooray! But Lost Cities Rivals, to me, like other auction games, works better with more than 2 players. Otherwise, it's just too much back and forth and it feels a little bit repetitive. Also, with 2 players, there will soon be a lot of cards that are completely useless because there are only 2 players that are fighting for them. And when we are both, say, our expeditions are at level 5 or 6, well, a lot of those cards are completely useless. With more players, it's useless to me, but it's useful to you. So to me, it's still interesting, possibly to fight for something that you may need just to take it away from you. But there are cards that none of the players in the game are interested in, then those are just trivial. And with 2 players, that is going to happen more often and sooner. So I would recommend the game for 3 to 4 players. When you have that target, then you have a really sweet game that has all the simplicity, the elegance, the clean design that you expect from a Knizia game, that you expect from a Lost Cities type of game. Because comparing the previous number and figuring out if the next one is the same or higher, everybody can do that, and yet making decisions about when to commit to add an 8, how many positions to skip in your expedition in order to grab a card, which is cool and has a lot of points. But again, it locks your expedition, but if you don't take it, somebody else may take it. It is such a simple idea, and yet it opens a whole range of interesting gameplay opportunities. And this is what we like from many designs by Knizia, which is in fact there's a beautiful, productive disproportion between the simplicity of the basic idea and then the gameplay, the fun, the interest of the gameplay that results. Mind you, this is not a game that results in incredible, multi-layer, super complex gameplay, nor does it need to be. It is a game that is based on such a simple idea, and yet it is more than the sum of the parts. It is a game that you can play with pretty much anybody. Anybody understands how auctions work. Anybody can compare a 7 and an 8 and see if in fact you can attach the 7 after the 8 or not. You can play with anybody. It's easy to teach, quick, simple, clean, and just fun. Again, just for my personal taste, I don't enjoy it all that much with 2 players. Other than that, it is a perfect filler. It's a lot of fun. Within its category, it is definitely a very solid game.